This is a production of Cornell University.
Thank you, Don. I'm Marcia Eames-Shively, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the faculty advisor for Hortus Forum. So what a pleasure to be here today to be introducing students who will be telling you about some new directions for Hortus Forum. I do just want to have a couple of shout outs. We've moved to a shared leadership approach with this really vibrant undergraduate club. And I just want to acknowledge Leah Cook, who serves as an international trip advisor for these students, and Betsy Lamb, who's recently joined our team. She is someone who has a real passion for working with students, doesn't always get that opportunity, and really enjoys, for example, the shorter trips here that students engage in, and has been serving more recently as she's entering in as something of a meeting advisor. And Neil Matson gives them guidance on growing. So I just feel as if it's important to name the ways in which Hortus Forum as an undergraduate club is really drawing on a lot of our resources, very wisely, I think.
But they can take me on longer trips if they
You guys can work that out. So what a pleasure to introduce Sarah and Hauk today. Over the past couple of years, Hortus Forum has been going through some really exciting changes, and these two have been at the heart of some of those changes, really strengthening accountability and responsibility in the club and the team of officers. Officers do receive credit for Hortus Forum officer leadership development, and there are a handful that aren't here today just because of their schedules, but Sarah and Hauk will be guiding you through some changes that they've been experiencing. Sarah was the primary Hortus Forum treasurer for the previous 2 consecutive years, and I have to tell you, accountability has been her thing, just really strengthening that whole piece in terms of working with SIPs, admin managers, just really strengthening the accountability for the treasury. She's a senior in plant sciences and agricultural sciences with a concentration in crop production and management. She's also an undergraduate researcher in Kettering's lab working on her senior honors thesis in soil nutrient management, and she's looking to pursue a graduate degree in soil sciences upon graduation in May. Hauk Boyes is the current president of Hortus Forum and the previous sales treasurer from last year. And he's a senior in ag sciences with focuses in horticulture, plant sciences, and education. He's from Sullivan County, New York, and was raised on a maple syrup farm with diversified agriculture. And after college, he's looking into the horticulture industry, public horticulture, and education, having drawn positive experiences from working with both the Cornell Botanic Gardens Youth Education Program and Ball Horticultural Trial and Show Gardens. And I'm sure after you hear them today, you'll see that they should likely have no trouble going forward in the world, given their the way in which they're ready to embrace innovation and change. So what a pleasure to introduce them today. Thank you for giving them your attention.
I'm just going to drag Geneva off to the side there. All yours.
Thank you, Marcia, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Hauk, and this is Sarah, and we are representing the Hortus Forum, Cornell's undergraduate horticulture club today. The reason for our presentation is because last spring, we applied for an Engaged Leadership Opportunity Grant through Engaged Cornell, and one of our pay-ups to that was to have a presentation at the end of the year kind of summing up our reflection on the whole grant process. Just a little background on Hortus Forum. We have a mission statement that's cultivating a positive social community, which fosters a passion for plants and teaches the value of horticulture. We try to embody this in all the activities that we do, and it's a plethora of activities throughout the semester. Wednesdays, we usually have meetings every week, except for the first Wednesday, which is an officer meeting. That's where we do hands-on activities, industry tours, whether they're local or even on campus, and then we do club updates, so general club happenings. You've probably seen sales around campus before. We do Friday sales. It's either a man lobby physical sciences building, or sometimes Hope Plaza. And then we do social events also, so where we kind of connect to the community, but also have our name tied to it as well. So more on our Engaged Leadership Grant. We have a 3-part program that Sarah's going to outline for us today.
So when we were looking back at our grant, we kind of split it up into 3 main problems or topic areas that we were kind of experiencing. So the first is horticulture learning opportunities. We realized we were kind of falling into a routine, and we wanted to make sure we were getting the most out of this learning experience. The second is exploring public and purposeful mission. Again, we have this beautiful mission statement, but we weren't utilizing it, and we weren't necessarily following it to its most capacity. And the third part is a leadership model alteration. So we realized that the way our leadership model was set up, we weren't really utilizing each other, and the work wasn't being distributed accordingly. So the way we're going to kind of explain this grant and our processes is that we're going to start by telling you about what problems we were facing, and then how we addressed it through the grant, followed by the outcomes. What is going well? What are we still working on?
I'll start with the first part, which is the new horticultural opportunities. And we looked at this through the lens of plant sales. So one of the big things that Hortus Forum does is we have 2 greenhouse bays up at KPL greenhouses where we produce a whole bunch of different plants. Some of the problems that we have with producing these plants is that we're selling to a flooded market. We usually have people who are buying the same plants over and over again. And when we're only doing sales at 3 different locations, we see the same people. You can only make so much money out of Man Lobby. We also have a lack of learning opportunity with the same plants. We have a whole bunch of begonias and a whole bunch of snake plants. Usually we just divide them or do leaf cuttings from them, and we do the same thing over and over again. So it gets very monotonous, and we're not really expanding our learning opportunities that way. And we're not really paying attention to what our consumers need. If we're operating as like a club business for fundraising, we should also know what we're selling, to who we're selling, and why we're selling. So our steps towards improvement through the grant, we decided to consolidate and transition one of the 2 of our greenhouse bays into a spring vegetable starter. This method had us take our separate succulent house and tropical house, combine them into one, and make sure that our practices were on point so that they're all combined, sterilizing this newly opened house, and then replacing it with seeded vegetables. So seeds is a new opportunity that we started to step in rather than a leaf cutting or division propagation. Through this, we had an opportunity to learn about the growing of vegetable crops, bedding plants, and then hanging baskets through a donation with Dr. Bill Miller. And finally, we actually could expand our market to the greater Ithaca community and not just students. These are just some of the varieties. All these pictures that you see were taken by Hortus Forum members in our greenhouses. Or later on, we'll see some pictures from Steve Reiners. Now we're talking about outcomes. So positive outcomes of doing this change in the sale perspective is that we learned how to grow a wider variety of plants in the greenhouse. It expanded our market. So bedding plants and vegetables, you're not really going to be selling to students here who are here for only a semester. We geared more towards the Ithaca community. We had to send out publications and to staff so they could have gardens over the summer. We increased our membership participation with mini projects by sending out emails saying, this is a new opportunity that you can get involved in. It's hands-on and it's going to take a lot of work. We hope to see you there. And then finally, we had a connection to the community. We weren't just selling a houseplant. We were selling something that they could use for food. And it had a very good impact on our club. Some of the learning opportunities, we didn't really want to say negatives throughout this presentation. So this is just something that we can work towards in the future. The sale timing and planning. We sowed our seeds too early, and we ended up having tomatoes that were almost 4 feet high. Trying to put individual labels in each 4-inch pot was extremely difficult. We started to have some leaning plants tip over, entire flats flip onto the floor, and have to throw those out. Our sale time actually conflicted with the Ithaca garden sale downtown. So we're trying to pull the same type of consumers from Ithaca who've been going there for years up to our greenhouses at KPL, which is still kind of hard to describe how to get to. We also didn't budget in how much plants to produce and kind of match it to the consumer's need for that. So in coming next years, we're gonna have to definitely evaluate how much we had left over and how much we should actually sow for the next year. And I talked about our growing issues. We also had a really warm greenhouse and the tomatoes liked that. So that kind of just perpetuated our problem. We did not use any sprays when we were growing these plants. We used a lot of beneficial insects. And when we have a lot of leaf cover and dense planting, it just increases pest potential. Moving forward to our next steps, we will be doing a spring sale next spring. We're going to tweak what varieties we use and how much we're going to grow. We're also going to seed them at the right time, hopefully. We used Neil Matson, and we're going to use him again as a resource, and hopefully have a better outcome for that. And then we're going to look for a new sale opportunity position. KPL Greenhouses, as I mentioned, was hard to get to. Livestock Pavilion has an actual address that we can send to consumers to say, come here to the Livestock Pavilion, we'll have plants for you.
So the next part of our grant really focuses on exploring public and purposeful mission. So while we have this club and we love plants and we want to share that love with others, we were still kind of struggling to find good meaning and to have that meaning match our actions. So the existing problems, again, are just embodying our mission of cultivating a positive social community which fosters a passion for plants and teaches the value of horticulture. We were often finding that we were profit-driven, but we wanted to be philanthropic. So it was kind of finding a good balance and also motivating our members to see the same vision. So through the grant, we wanted to work with Geneva Community Gardens to grow transplants, vegetable transplants for that program. We also reached out to Cal's departments to find experts in different fields and to make sure that we were building our knowledge and our skill sets accordingly. We reached out to Professor Perosio to talk about marketing and how we want others to see our club and what we want our club brand to be, just as one example. We also hosted a Cal's-wide workshop on community gardens with Fiona Doherty, Dr. Steve Reiners, and Dr. Christine Smart, who were able to talk to us as well as Cal's members and other students and faculty and staff about how important community gardens are and what opportunities we have there. So things that were really positive, Cynthia and I, you can see us there on the right, we went to the giveaway day in May, and it was really excellent. It was so humbling and great to see community members really excited about these plants and asking great questions about how to grow them and how to care for them, and looking at producing their own vegetables. The plants were distributed to a dozen community gardens around Geneva, and of 5,000 pounds of fresh produce that was produced throughout Geneva, approximately half was grown from Hortus Forum plants. So, you know, for a first year program, that's really exciting to know that our efforts here in Cornell can make a big impact elsewhere. Some challenges we faced was that our giveaway day was the same day as our bedding plant sale. So we were kind of struggling to find the students to go to the giveaway day. And it was hard to recruit student participants overall about volunteering. I think people like the idea, but during final exam period and throughout school, everyone's busy and everyone's stressed. And it's sometimes difficult to find ways to motivate people to follow through and just getting people there to see how exciting and how worthwhile this project is. Moving forward, we would love to do another giveaway day, maybe even having more giveaway days and sending different students on different days to different locations. So that way we can increase our impact and also get more club members excited about this project. We're also looking for opportunities for community impact, looking at different community gardens, looking at different places where we can distribute our plants, or looking for different niches where we can grow different plants, which also ties back into our learning potentials.
Now on to the most complicated part of our grant writing. So we actually got a specific type of engaged Cornell grant. It was under the leadership branch of it. The original leadership model that we have is one way. Our new proposed kind of hybrid variety of leadership model is another way. I'll try to explain it the best that I can. If you have any questions during this point, feel free to raise your hand. So the problems that we had with our existing model of leadership is that we have a vertical hierarchical leadership model where we had a president, a vice president, a secretary, and so on. There was an uneven distribution of work, so some officers really wouldn't be there unless it was super needed for them to be there, and others would be there 100% of the And it was an unclear and overlap in job descriptions. For example, one of the things that we had is who's going to post on social media. Is that the secretary's job or is that the webmaster's job? And finally, we have a club of officers. It's a core group of students who we find always at the greenhouse or always at our sales, though we have a listserv that's over 100 members long. So we try to evaluate, like, how are we going to include the other? Steps towards improvement. We developed a horizontal leadership model instead of a vertical model. We created a whole new sales position that would cater towards that specific position's needs. And then we added consulting advisors, like Marcia mentioned in the introduction. We added Leah, Dr. Mattson, and Dr. Lamb. So now, a visual so you can see what the original hierarchical leadership model looked like. We have 4 greenhouse workers. Usually 2 of them are the head greenhouse managers, and then 2 of them are apprentices. Usually we hope that the apprentices would take on the greenhouse manager position in the next year. However, that's not always true. One of the main problems that we find with this is that there's no clear connection with who's interacting with our members. So we have all these positions, but no real direction in where to go to. With our horizontal leadership model, we tried to change that. We created work teams instead of just positions so that we have a direct connection to our members. You can see now that we have the sales treasurer position on the far right, but we also have the greenhouse, webmaster, public relations, treasurer. And under that whole umbrella is the president position, who's more acting like a CEO, asking to make sure that all of the working groups are doing what needs to get done and that they're actually staying on top of their tasks. At any point in my position as the president, I can step in and help another group out, but it's not really my main responsibility as much as the team and the members. Positives that we've had for this is that we've had an improvement in the task distribution. We have now clear expectations on what working team is supposed to do what. We've strengthened our knowledge base through new faculty connections. We can draw on different specialties that we have. So Dr. Mattson has all of this greenhouse production knowledge. I'm sure we're going to be calling on Dr. Lamb for IPM in the greenhouse for the spring. And then we have more member inclusiveness fostered through this explicit connection with working groups. We're now sending out signups that say, if you want to work with Maya, our sales treasurer, who's doing marketing and sales organization, sign up and connect with her.
So Hauk,
yes.
Is a greater percentage of the total list that you have now participating in Hortus activities?
That's going to come up in like 2 slides. It's
Great.
Moving forward. So if you hold on to that thought, I will get to it. Some of our learning opportunities is the struggle with involvement of the balance, credit, volunteering, and effort. We have students who we're still seeing are just touch and go when it comes to events. If it says free on it, they're there. If it says work on it, they're not. So we're trying to incorporate this whole thing of like, you can get something if you put something in. We're trying to say that in a very nice way so that we're not saying that this is mandatory for you to be in this club. And then finally, the accountability and transparency that comes with these officer positions. We have 5 explained expanded positions, but now all of those positions need to work together with each other to make sure that that overlap is not going to happen again. The transparency is coming because Marcia is requiring us to do bi-weekly updates, which help everybody in the club. Just saying like what officer is doing what for that coming week. Moving forward, we know that this is a workable model. It's not set in stone yet. We just transitioned into it. It doesn't mean that all of our problems are solved. It's going to be malleable for the future outlook. Now, the problem that we had that Don just mentioned was that motivating members to join these working teams. How are we supposed to do that if we're having problems getting them to show up to some of our meetings? We're trying to include a top-down enthusiasm. So we have working teams, and I'm trying to encourage them to reach out to members, be more than a net ID, and have them show your face at a meeting, have them show your face at a sale, say, hello, my name is Hauk, I'm the president, would you like to work with me on this project? Actually getting your voice out there and making that personal connection to the members. It's not happening 100% now. It's still a dream up in the air. We're trying to pin it down for next semester, which is going to happen in the reflection definitely for this fall.
So just beyond the grant, we've been having a lot of success in other areas of our club. We've been more excited about finding new ideas for club meetings. Before, we were kind of stuck in these routines of doing the same activities every year. And with these new changes has kind of sparked some inspiration for new ideas. We've been really excited about doing more community events, such as the succulent planter that was given to President Pollock and Dean Bohr, which we had students on the art squad help to plant such planter, and it turned out really great, as you can see. We want to host more intentional free community activities to continue to get the community engaged and to keep our members engaged as well. We're making new club partnerships and outreaching to the public and making sure that we're not just falling into a routine, but we're really pushing ourselves to be active in the community and to be working with other groups to make sure that we are getting the most out of this experience. So we'd like to give a huge thank you to Engaged Cornell for sponsoring this grant and all of our projects. We'd also like to thank our advisor, Marcia Eames-Shively, who's been with us every step of the way, Dr. Reiners, Dr. Smart, Fiona Doherty for helping us with all of the community garden work, as well as Kevin, who is he's now a graduate student, but he was an undergraduate member, and he's always around, and he takes great pictures, and he's really fun. And was a great help for this presentation. We'd also like to thank everyone else who's been there with us throughout the way and everyone who supports our club.
Now, for dialogue, so any questions anyone has, feel free.
So one of the trade-offs of a more horizontal management structure is it's harder to make decisions because more people are involved. So have you found that to be true, and how have you dealt with that?
Yes. So I have a very strong opinion when it comes to making decisions. My philosophy is that if you think of the idea, you can also think of a way to get it done. So if someone, for example, comes up with me with the idea saying, oh, it's a great idea to have business cards. I'm like, that is a good idea. Maya is doing sales, and you can hand out business cards there. How about you collaborate with Maya and make that happen? So it's very much so like it's either a yes, we can try to do it, or what are the problems with it? How can we work to fix it before we start rolling with it? But I usually hold the person who comes up with the idea accountable. Go ahead.
Yeah. My question is, what did the Engage Cornell grant provide you in terms of resources and people that you could interact with or financially?
Mm-hmm. So one of the problems that we've had is the money struggle. If we're profit motivated, sometimes we always don't want to spend our own money to do stuff, especially when we have trips and things going on. Engaged Cornell gave us an opportunity to kind of take that weight off our shoulders to do this community donation. They paid for plant materials, the growing time in the greenhouses, and then also some of the outreach stuff. So we did printing for the plant varieties when we gave away the plants and said what they were good for. We actually only used a quarter of the funding that we requested because we got a lot of faculty donations to us. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Sarah, in the previous slide, you mentioned that you're seeking new collaborations and partnerships. There's quite a few students here who are part of SOHO. Has there been any efforts to collaborate between Hortus and SOHO?
Actually, from our experience, there hasn't been, and that's definitely a space and a void that needs to be filled because we have a lot of the same goals and we want to do the same things and we're interested in the same topics. But absolutely, that's definitely a space that needs to be filled in the coming months.
I think you guys had a sale or a hands-on activity last semester. We tried, yeah. Oops, sorry.
Sell some plants there, and yeah. We have apples, you have plants. That could be a good friendship.
But yeah, some of the other partnerships that we're looking into is the Nature RX and Cornell Minds Matter. A very strong push these days are going to be that plant and human well-being. I have a meeting on Wednesday with somebody from Nature RX that we're going to be working with.
I just want to offer one more shout out for Hortus Forum. Was Carol James able to join us? Is she here? I don't think she's here. I just want to say that, we're thinking about this in the context of horticulture and CALS, But if you imagine the hundreds and hundreds of clubs on campus, the issues that they're describing of a vertical leadership model and moving to a shared leadership model is something that so many clubs are struggling with on campus. So we actually have the eye of the university in terms of watching the way this is unfolding, because it could serve as a university model as well. So it's just one more shout out to the way in which they're moving forward and possibly serving, and it's a different form of public purpose to have people looking at you as a model, but I'm just really pleased from that perspective as well.
One of the things that Cornell's kind of fallen short on is, participation in national meetings like ASHS. And you guys had a chance to go there to Hawaii and see the opportunity there for undergraduate involvement. So as you're going forward, are you thinking about maybe sort of expanding the vision for what Hortus Forum can do and maybe increase participation in those sorts of things and increase visibility of Cornell nationally?
Yeah, so Hauk and I had the opportunity to go to the ASHS conference in Hawaii this fall, and we talked a lot about that, how our club doesn't really seek professional event opportunities per se, and how it would be so great to bring students to events like that, where we can make professional connections and learn about the research in horticulture that's going on across the country. So that's definitely an opportunity, maybe even through the next big travel opportunity that comes up, or I don't know, but that's definitely kind of a direction that we've been thinking about and talking about a lot.
Yeah. We do run into the problem, though, is that we're a widespread club. So we have students who are not just in plant sciences. We have people who are engineers, communication majors, and some even like all the way down in arts and sciences for InfoSci. When we try to just allocate our own funding to that specific of an event, it kind of leaves out all of those other people. So it's kind of like, even if you're working sales, you might not get a majority of the funding towards what you want to do, because ASHS is very heavily plant science research, and it's maybe not so applicable to an info science person or a comm person in their direction. SAFC funding is going to become a good friend to us hopefully next semester. That's going to help us with a lot more of the local trips that we're going to do. So if we're going down to the Philadelphia Flower Show, SAFC funding can help with some of the transportation, kind of lighten that cost load.
So next year's meeting is Washington, D.C., so transportation costs.
It is much easier to do Washington, D.C. than Hawaii.
But also consider the regional meetings, which are sometimes more student-oriented than the national meetings. And they have a lot of student programs, or have had in the past, certainly. And I would look at those, because they may have things that are of interest to people who are not in horticulture, because they may have judging or some other things that people find interesting. And there's some other meetings as well.
And that's why we're adding Dr. Lamb, because we do have an ignorance about stuff that's not going on around us. Go ahead.
Since the community engagement component of what you've done in the past year was supported by this Engage Cornell grant, can that become a sustainable each year activity?
Oh, yeah. So in our grant, we actually wrote that we were having the sale the same time as like the donation, so that sale would perpetuate the funding for the donation the next year. So even though we're going to still continue with some of the practices that we're under Turning a New Leaf, we're not going to require any funding next year for it, because we had that startup capital up front to do all the plants for the sale. Go ahead, Marcia.
So as two unusually forthright and strong officers, I mean, each of you has contributed so much in so many ways. What are your thoughts about how you can ensure a continuation of this kind of ESTJ forthright energy that you're bringing to the, really, like, what can you do in the spring semester to ensure that this positive, strong leadership continues?
I've definitely looked into some new programs that are like online to help with that kind of organization of the club itself. Definitely going to start doing the whole top-down enthusiasm push. When we have those working teams and we can actually see those working teams function, it might be more of an motivational aspect for our officers. I'm hoping that we can have a good reflection at the end of the fall semester. I think our next meeting is the end of this month, So we're going to actually talk about what we're going to do for the spring that's kind of a little bit different from this fall semester. As I said, it's still evolving. It's still going to be malleable. As a personal thing for me, I can stand up here and say, like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But just like in any educational system, if the people who are supposed to implement it don't enact it, it's not going to catch it all. So that's one of the fears that we have thought about while writing this grant is we can do this for the duration of the grant and said that we did it, but is it going to be sustainable after we leave? We do have the problem that we have a lot of seniors as officers and people who have been doing it for continuous years. You heard that Sarah was an officer for 2 years before she didn't do it this year. I've been an officer for 2 years. I'm not going to be here next year. So we have some people who are younger officers who will take over, hopefully next year. And we're trying to cultivate more people who are either freshmen or sophomores to join the club and kind of take that leadership initiative in there and hopefully train them in the way that we want them to act.
We have a question from Geneva.
Yep, go ahead.
So first of all, the two of you coordinated the presentation really well. I was very impressed sitting here. My question is about public outreach. Does any of your current public outreach involve science outreach to school systems, or is that among the list of things you've considered?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. Our outreach is trying to be a step forward. We have been invited into school programs before, trying to do just like a little bit, talk about how you grow plants. However, that's never been a strong component just yet. It was one of the ideas was, hey, wouldn't it be cool if ... The outreach thing is held strong by some of our members, so like myself and then the current greenhouse grower manager, Miles. But it's something that we're trying to look forward to. If we have connections from anybody in the audience that would like to do some outreach with us, let us know and we'll be able to partner with you.
Any other questions? If not, Sarah, Hauk, thank you both for a wonderful presentation.
Yes, thank you.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.